been a long time since we've done any of this kind of stuff, and it's mostly my fault. I take full responsibility.
It's all your fault.
It is all my fault. I've been slacking big time. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you are, I've had the task of creating a human. So it's here now, and it takes a lot of my time. But nonetheless, we're kicking off the new year right, and we've got some old faithfuls here. We've got Jim. Jim, how you doing?
I'm great.
And then
Good
we
to be
got
back,
Ian.
Scott.
Ian, long time no see, my friend. How you been?
Good, how are you?
Oh my gosh, I'm freaking exhausted, dude. All right, I'm not gonna bore you. Let's get to the chorus. Jim, lead off thought of the night. Go ahead.
Oh my gosh. Um, the big topic I've been thinking about is Peyton Manning and this stupid Al Jazeera report. Uh, that's all because I've been listening to EEI a lot over the past couple of days. And I guess here in New England, well, you're in New England, I'm in New Jersey. Up in New England, it must be a big deal. Down here in New Jersey, people are more concerned about the Giants losing their head coach and the Jets not making the playoffs again. So,
Jim, the first person to jump up and down when Tom Coughlin resigned was Bill Belichick. And I was right behind him. Those two Super Bowls stung. That just made me smile because you know why? The Giants are going to suck now. There's no way they're going to be able to put anything up against the Pats. And if we see them again in the Super Bowl, not a chance. That team was run by Coughlin.
all right. I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
hope so,
Certainly,
too.
we don't have to worry about the Giants this year.
Let's hope so. All right, Ian, thought of the night.
Thought of the night would be hopefully the Red Sox still do not have their opening day first baseman on the roster. Hanley, not feeling that at first. That's the train wreck waiting to happen. We saw it in left. If we see it at first, I mean, good things will not happen from that. So he's got to go as far away as possible.
I don't know if that's a hot take, but I like the take. I don't. I mean, I think everybody and their grandmother wants Hanley out of this vicinity of the world. But I like that you came hard and strong with that one, like right off the bat. You weren't messing.
Got to go for the easy layups, right?
Yeah, there you go. Start out with a point, right? Here's my hot take. My hot take is why, and we'll talk about this later. Why on God's green frickin' earth does everybody want to see Wade Boggs' number retired? I don't get it. I had a little bit of a back and forth with Ryan, who writes for the site as well, about this. He was all about it. I put out a poll that you guys retweeted, and I think out of 550 people, 70% of them wanted to see his number retired. I don't get it. I don't get it. But we'll talk more about that later. I just think with numbers being retired, I look at that in as a top five, and we'll talk about why, but top five Red Sox players should get their number retired, and I don't think Boggs was a top five player. But before, Jim, you jump on your infamous Drew bandwagons, before you drew me, let's kind of jump right into a topic that I think everybody's really interested to talk about, and I'm interested to hear what you got to say because we've been waiting for this day. The official announcement that David Ortiz is going to be retiring next year. Again, still up in the air. Big Papi has a knack and flair for the dramatics, so who knows? But the big thing is the farewell tour as it continues and starts. And in the middle, it's going to be a long season, especially if the team sucks, which I'm hoping they don't. But, Jim, right off the bat, what are some of your thoughts when Ortiz announced retirement? And do you think this is the real deal? And what is this year going to look like with him being revered?
I do think it is the real deal. I also think that it's time. I think he's going to get off to a very slow start again and pick it up towards probably the end of May, and we'll all lose our minds at the beginning of the season, and then we'll all start to calm down. To watch what that man has done in a Red Sox uniform has just been magnificent. And all through the ups and downs of his career, the times where he's struggled and the times where he has just carried this team on his back. To my mind, I do believe that he is the greatest clutch hitter in the history of the team. They ought to rename a street around Fenway for him and
All right.
retire the number, the whole bit. I know we're going to get into the retired number a little bit later on, but I think the man deserves every accolade that he's going to receive this year.
Interesting. Here's my thought. Greatest Red Sox ever? Red Sox player ever?
No, because
What?
you did well. Because then you deal with the whole designated hitter, blah 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 nonsense. I think there are better all-around players. I think he's the greatest clutch hitter. to ever wear that uniform.
Wait a minute. So the guy who brought 3 championships to a city that hadn't had one since 1918 is not the greatest Red Sox? Come on, even a Drew guy like you can admit.
I might defer to Ted Williams.
Listen, I love Teddy.
Ted.
I know, but come on. Ian,
I know. Listen, everybody was all up in arms. Oh, how did they go? Could they let Manny Ramirez go? They never won before Manny. All of that nonsense. Well, Manny's gone, and we've won since then. I get it. Ortiz is a larger-than-life figure. I just said to you, he's the greatest clutch hitter in the history of the team. But in terms of all-around player, I think the mantle goes elsewhere.
Okay. Well, that might be another episode. All right, Ian.
So I think for Ortiz this year, I think he's going to have a pretty good year. I think it'll be around 30 and 100 again, just the classic Ortiz. It's what he does. And I wouldn't be surprised, if you hear whispers out at the end of the year, oh, David's thinking about maybe sticking around for another year. But I think that'll just all be another stunt, and then he'll end up retiring at the end of the year.
Yeah, but can you honestly do that when you say you're going to retire and then probably have the entire season be a farewell Jeter-esque Mariano Rivera style? You get 900 presents and everybody reveres you, even though a lot of the league hates you. Can you really do that? I mean, is that a legit thing that you think he'll do?
He's got a flair for the dramatic, right? I mean, he likes to go out and, do certain things certain ways, and that's just one of the ways, that's something he's likely to do. I don't know if he'd actually come out of retirement or say he's going to come out and not retire after all, but I think he's definitely, going to throw out the, especially if he's having another 30 and 100 season, maybe I'm not going to hang it up just yet.
Maybe he pulls a Harold Baines.
Oh, jeez. All right. Here's my thought. Let's say he does have he's been a consistent 3,100 guy for the last several years, okay? Let's say he comes out and, for whatever reason, let's not go into why or how, let's say he does have another, let's say 35 and 115. What then? Is he retiring? But he doesn't win the World Series. They make the playoffs. He has a decent run, 35 and 115 in the regular season. What then? Do you think people are clamoring, begging him to come back? Or do they want to see him ride off in the sunset? What do you think, Jim?
I think they let him ride off into the sunset.
Who's they?
Fans and team.
You think fans are done with him?
Yep. Not done with him. I just think I think everybody will just say it's time.
Do you agree, Ian?
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll end up being his last year. I think it's time.
See, I'm not so convinced. I think if he's hitting 35 and 115, people are going, "Why the hell are you retiring? Like, you still got it, buddy. You still got it." Now, granted, last year he did a lot of that in the second half, like you said, Jim. I don't know. I like having Ortiz around just in the fact that he gives us something to write about. I mean, whether it's storming press conferences, whether it's whatever kind of drama he's drumming up, the guy should be on a soap opera. But I have to go back. He's got to be the greatest Red Sox, and here's why. I don't think it has that much to do with the fact that he's a DH. Granted, maybe if he played first base more, he would have been considered, without a doubt, hands down, the greatest Red Sox. I just think what he's done for the franchise and the amount of time he's done it for, and the way he's been able to hit consistently, perform unbelievably in the playoffs. I love Ted Williams just like the next Red Sox fan, but you can't deny the guy has done more for the team than any other Red Sox. True or false? Jim?
Well, I mean, certainly he's been part of 3 World Series teams that I never thought I'd see in my lifetime. So you can't argue with that. And I do believe that part of this is the stigma against the designated hitter, which it's funny that we're kind of discussing this. I think when it comes time for David Ortiz to be mentioned 5 years from now, 6 years from now, whatever, as a Hall of Fame candidate, I think baseball is going to have to accept the fact that the designated hitter is a legitimate position in baseball, and they're going to have to deal with it. If Edgar Martinez doesn't get in between now and then, David Ortiz should be the first designated hitter to go in. If baseball wants the DH, then they have to acknowledge that there are guys who are going to be DHs who are going to put up the kind of numbers that should warrant them getting into the Hall of Fame.
To your point, Jim, I lived in Seattle for a couple of years. Edgar Martinez has his own street down near Safeco. If he gets his own street name, I only think it's fair that Ortiz does.
Well, there'll be a statue, no question about it, for David
Well,
when it's all said and done.
fair enough. Ian, greatest Red Sox or no?
I think he is. I think there's also a distinction between greatest player or like greater player or greatest Red Sox. And for the Red Sox, I think he's their greatest guy. I don't know if he's better than Ted Williams, but for what he's meant to this team, the 3 titles, breaking the curse, I think he definitely means more to the team and therefore is the greatest Red Sox in that regard. But I don't know if he's necessarily a better player, but certainly a better clutch hitter.
Fair enough. Okay, let's move on. The next thing we got to talk about is one of my opening thoughts, which is Wade Boggs' number is being retired. I thought it was very interesting. It seems to be the year of the retirement of numbers. You have Pedro, which I thought was deserving. I consider Pedro a top 5 Red Sox. Now, granted, he wasn't here for a long time, but when he was here, he's the most dominant pitcher in Major League Baseball. Bottom line, I don't think you can. I've been into arguments with people on Twitter. Somebody was showing me Greg Maddox numbers, and it just doesn't even compare. Similar in some ways, but in a lot of other ways, not so much. But as we turn to Boggs, like I said, I got into it with Ryan. He showed me the stats. Great. He's got great stats. I think when you look at him in the product of the era in which he played, I don't consider him a top 5 Red Sox, and I think you got to be a top 5 guy, and you can have debate on who the top 5 are because he said, well, Scott, I wouldn't want you to be in a New York Yankees guy because look at all the great players they had. You can argue great top 5 Yankee players. I don't think you can argue Wade Boggs being in the top 5 for Red Sox. Now, that's my opinion. Ian, what are your thoughts on him getting his number retired at Fenway?
I think it's deservingly so. I mean, great
Oh.
player.
Would you let the poor kid finish?
Go ahead.
All right. So if you think about it, though.
Oh. I was kidding. Go ahead.
Won all the batting titles. I mean, that speaks for something right there. One of the greatest hitters in the league over that time period and doing it for the Red Sox. Granted, I think the reason they kept him out for so long was just because of the Yankee thing, riding the horse and the whole spiel right there. But for the Red Sox, what he contributed, clearly a lot, and I think that definitely warrants getting his number.
How did they do when his time was here? How did they do as a team?
Not great, but I mean, one player doesn't make a team.
David Ortiz?
They had a whole lot of other guys there.
Hey, we're talking about clutch hitters, right? Sorry.
That is true, but you can only do as much as your team puts you in a spot to do.
Okay. Jim?
I think had the Red Sox won in 1986, and God knows Boggs was a big part of that team, your last comment wouldn't be as you wouldn't be able to get away with that statement. Let me put it that way. If they had won in '86, Boggs, I saw this number the other day, Scott. After his 58th at bat in his career, he was hitting .328. His career average never dropped below that. He is a remarkable player, and had he played in this era when we're all crazy about OBP and some of these newer metrics that are out there, he'd be revered as a saint by many. I think, he had this rap of being a little bit selfish, which I don't know if that was true or not. I remember being in Logan Airport, and it was later in Boggs' career. I don't remember the exact year, but he had been dealing with a hamstring issue, and I had covered the game for a local New York radio station. So I was in the locker room and happened to see how taped up Boggs was. And, I mean, maybe it's an act. I don't know. I'm watching him limp around the clubhouse, but my impression that day was this guy's going through an awful lot just to get himself on the field. And I think that's a side of Wade Boggs that a lot of people didn't see. All they saw was he's selfish. It's all about him. It's not about the team. And I don't buy that.
Well, okay. So here's my question. We're talking about a retired number, okay? And I think in baseball, out of any of the major sports, that should really count for something, right? There's not a lot of Red Sox numbers retired. I don't think just because you're, and Ryan hit me with the stats, okay? As a Red Sox, he hit .338, fantastic batting average. I'll give him that. .428 OBP, .462 slugging, and almost 2,100 hits, Rookie of the Year, 8-time All-Star, 6-time Silver Slugger. Okay. So now are we retiring numbers because you had a batting average of 338 and had 2,100 hits as a Red Sox? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I
Most
just
games
don't.
ever played by a Red Sox third baseman, right?
Okay.
He had a
So
pretty damn good career over there.
I'm not saying he had a bad career, but is he a legit top 5 Red Sox?
Well, they have more than 5 numbers up there, so should they take some down?
I I go always back to my caveat. You can debate, right? You can debate. Can you debate Wade Boggs as a top 5 Red Sox?
Does he have to be top 5 to get his number retired?
I think that's the criteria, man. I think you don't just go and go, you know what? You're a top 10 guy. We'll let you in. Retirement of a number, at least in my mind, is something that's prestigious. It's something that you have done that only a short handful of guys, a short list of people have done for the organization to be able to earn the right to have your number retired. I'm not doubting that Wade Boggs was a tough dude. I'm not even talking about the selfish aspect and what the media portrayed him as. I'm talking about just my thought of a retired number needs to be in the top 5, and you can argue who's in that top 5. If you look at the Yankees, you can argue Ruth, DiMaggio, you can even argue Jeter, Mariano, you name them, Lou Gehrig, you can name Mickey Mantle. You can argue those guys as top 5 guys. Can you argue that Boggs was the top 5 Red Sox? Anybody?
Had Boggs' career ended with his last Red Sox game, and the whole thing with the horse in Yankee Stadium, if that had never happened, would he have gone in? Do you think he had enough numbers to get into the Hall of Fame? Not the Red Sox Hall of Fame, but in Cooperstown.
No.
Were his numbers good enough?
Nope.
You don't think that he had a long enough
21
period of dominance? You don't think he was one of the dominant players of his era?
21. If you're going by the numbers, Jim, not even 2,100 hits. Yeah, he had a 338 batting average, but he didn't have 3,000 hits, and he wasn't a power hitter.
No, he wasn't, except for
He
that
wa-
1 or 2 years that he had where they asked him to hit more home runs.
Right, but he wasn't a power hitter. He hit for average. He had a great OPP. I'll give him that, but he didn't have 3,000 hits. You would put him in the Hall of Fame with just his Red Sox career.
I think it'd be pretty close, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Ian, you want to weigh in on this?
I think that's also pretty close. I don't know if he gets in, but I mean, when you're talking about a short period of dominance, that's essentially what Pedro had. Pedro didn't have this super long career. It was a short period of utter dominance, and that's what 4 batting titles in a row kind of does.
I disagree with that. He was dominant in Montreal before he came to Boston. He was a Cy Young guy in Montreal. So, I mean,
No, I agree with that. I'm just saying it's not like he had this 15, 20-year career where he was utterly fantastic. It was a short window in that career that
Right.
was very, very good.
And people compare him with Koufax in that. I mean, Sandy's career was even shorter, but they compare him to that in terms of length of career.
yeah, but would you say Boggs in that time was the top 5 guy?
I think he was one of the dominant players of his era. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no question in my mind.
Okay. I just think, but now we're talking number. You retire his number with the career he had as a Red Sox. You would retire it.
Yeah, I think so. I do think so.
I think I'm swaying you towards my side, is what I think.
Well, again, and you bring up the horse in the Yankee Stadium, and that does sting a little bit.
Yeah, and
There's
I'm
no
not
question about it.
Like I said, I'm taking all the middle fingers at the Red Sox because of the bad breakup out of the picture. Because that was a different time too. That was different ownership. I don't even count that. What I do count is the fact that I don't think he's a top 5 Red Sox. And if you're not a top 5, I don't think your numbers should be up there.
Can you imagine if he had played when Dr. Charles was with the team, or if Dr. Charles had been with the team then? Can you imagine the way Boggs would have been lauded and celebrated? Can you imagine? Dr. Charles would have had a field day with him.
I'm sorry. Hey, it happens, man. You play in the era you playing in. You get the cards you're dealt, Jim. You know it. All right, let's move on. Speaking of pinstripes and just buying your way to relevance, or at least trading. I'll give them credit. They didn't buy this one. They traded it. Chapman is now pinstriper, and thoughts around the block are this puts the Yankees in a pretty decent position. They're going to have a great 1-2 punch. I mean, Andrew Miller and Aroldis Chapman is going to be sick. So if they're ahead and they get to the 8th inning,
You forgot Betances.
Yep.
yeah, okay, 7-8, 7-8-9 is going to look pretty nasty. Okay, does this first of all scare you as a Red Sox fan, and second of all, does this put them anywhere near top 2 in the AL East? Ian?
I think it puts them up there. I think it puts them in consideration. I mean, having a bullpen like that, you've seen what it can do for Kansas City. I mean, obviously that's utter dominance, what's about to occur in that bullpen. So, I mean, it puts them right up there. But still, that starting rotation, question marks all around with Tanaka and Pineda and Sabathia and whatever's going on there. So, I mean, they still have a lot of questions. But if some of those question marks, start to work out, then, yeah, they're going to be right up there.
So okay, I agree with the bullpen aspect. I also agree with the starting pitching. I don't think they got much in the field. Is Alex Rodriguez going to have another renaissance season?
No, I don't think so. But even still, I'd imagine Ellsbury having a better year than he's had.
That's good.
That's an evil laugh.
That's good. As one of our writers put it, D. Ellsbury.
Yep.
I like it, though. Ian's sticking to his guns, and that's what I appreciate about him. Jim, thoughts on that?
Well, I have a couple thoughts. First, if they keep these 3 guys, Betances, Miller, and obviously Chapman now, it's a 6-inning game. So you better have the lead after 6 innings. I don't think the Yankees will keep all 3. I know they've been trying to trade Andrew Miller. And, if you looked at the Yankee roster prior to Chapman and you said, well, what's the strongest part of the team? You would have said the back end of the bullpen. So with all of the other holes that they have, why did they go out and make the strongest part even stronger when they could have fixed some other holes that they have? And Ian, you just referred to some of the starting pitching problems, and Scott, you mentioned some of the other issues as well. What do you get from Rodriguez? What are you going to get from Ellsbury? They're trying to trade Gardner. It's not a young team to begin with. So, I mean, obviously Chapman changes the back end of the bullpen, makes it even stronger. I don't think all 3 of them will be there. Maybe they will be on opening day, but I think by the trade deadline, I wouldn't be surprised to see Miller gone. I also wouldn't be surprised to see Miller gone before opening day, but I could see a scenario in which the 3 of them would be there. But there are a lot of holes on that team, and they could easily find themselves down heading into the 5th and 6th innings with not enough offense to get past some of the other teams.
See, this is exactly my point. The Yankees, this is what the scenario is. The Yankees have become the AARP of the MLB. Okay, they are just a few unfortunate natural cause deaths away from being a mortuary at this point. And not only that, but you look at the starting pitching, it's god awful. And so you're pleading, you're hoping that CC Sabathia at 300 plus pounds can make it 6 innings at either with a lead or with a tie. And I think you're going to put a lot of pressure. Tanaka, he's DLsbury, version 2.0 at this point. He's always on the DL. That elbow's always suspect, and I just don't see it. I don't see that they've got a lot of power in that lineup. I mean, sure, A-Rod, if he's all natural again this year, may have an opportunity to have another great year in terms of what he can bring at his age, but you're relying on a 40-year-old man. You're relying on just – it's sad. It really is sad. You know what I've come to realize about the Yankees? That the Yankees and the Red Sox are never going to be the same until that farm system gets better. Because I'll tell you what, the Red Sox are looking like they're producing superstar after superstar from the farm, and the Yankees look like they're just trying to make sure they can put their old cows out the pasture at some point and kill them off before they age themselves out of the MLB. I mean, it really is sad. And to top that, does it ever feel like the Red Sox-Yankees rivalry is ever going to get back to where it was before? I mean, Jim, are you feeling like I have in the past couple of years that it's been just absolutely crap, even in the 2013 season.
Yeah, for me, the rivalry, for all intents and purposes, really died after 2004. That was the final nail in the coffin. Um, and as someone who lives in the New York City area, I'm kind of tired of it anyway. I'd like to see some new rivalries develop in baseball. Um, how many times are they shoving the Yankee Red Sox games on Sunday nights? Is it 4 this year that we're getting?
Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal.
Enough already. There's a lot of other great teams out there. I'd like to see the Royals on television a little bit more. Let's develop some other rivalries. That Kansas City-New York rivalry used to be amazing, but because it's the Red Sox and the Yankees, they kind of keep forcing it down our throats. I would love to see Major League Baseball go in another direction with that. But the rivalry, for me, for all intents and purposes, once 2004 happened, it changed everything down here in this area. It changed everything.
Killed him. Ian, do you agree? Has it been on ice as of late?
Yeah, especially with the two teams, not playing well at the same time, let alone having star talent. So, I mean, there's really no comparison to what it was back in, 03 and 04. So it's kind of died off. And like Jim was saying, I'd like to see it kind of turn over. Back in 08 and 09 when the Red Sox were going at it with Tampa, that was much better than their games against the Yankees. So it's time to definitely push some new rivalries in the game.
Yeah, I don't even know who the Red Sox, who's testy with them or not. I mean, it was Tampa Bay when Price was there for sure. And, the whole thing with Coco Crisp and James Shields and that old wild rodeo. But I can't think of anybody right now who gets under their skin in particular. I mean, is there anybody out there you could think of that actually just gets the Red Sox pissed off when they play each other?
Maybe Toronto a little bit. There was a little bit of that, I think, last year.
Yeah, I can see that.
But not to the extent that the Yankee-Red Sox rivalry had now.
I mean, I love games when you know that at any moment, like, the lid could break off because the tension's there, and that means every pitch matters. And I just haven't seen that in a while. It sucks because you go to Fenway and you want to see that. I went to a couple Yankees games last year, and it just was like, really? This is,
you know, the team to be good for that to happen.
No kidding. Hey, opening day was awesome, but after that, it was pretty much downhill from there. All right. Of course, the final topic, the topic that everybody's been talking about this offseason, the acquisition of David Price. I'm just going to go with initial thoughts, and I want to hear your guys' initial thoughts, and we'll kind of dig a little bit. This was a move that was forced. This was a forced move. It was pretty clear when they brought Dombrowski in that he was going to pay big bucks for a big-time free agent. What I like about the move, you don't lose any of your key pieces. What I'm not sure about the move and somewhat okay with is the fact that contract's going to suck if he doesn't opt out. But if he does opt out, you may have got the best 3 years left of David Price. It could be interesting. Jim, what are your thoughts?
The 3-year opt-out. Scott, I am praying that if there's a deed of God in heaven, and if God cares about baseball, and especially the Red Sox, let that 3-year opt-out happen. I hate the contract. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Did I say that enough? 7 years for a pitcher, especially at that age, is too much. I've never been a huge David Price fan to begin with. You see him in big games, especially in the postseason, and you're thinking, come on, David, show me something. And I know he had one pretty good outing this past year, even though it was a game they lost. But if the first 3 years are consistent, then I think the Red Sox do well. I want him to opt out, though, and get rid of those last 4 years. Otherwise, I think it's a disastrous move for the team.
Ian?
I think it's a fantastic move. You need a pitcher. I mean, plain and simple. You're not going into opening day next year at Buckholz as your opening day guy. So
hey, did you see the picture Carabas tweeted out of Buckholz looking like he gained weight?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
It doesn't matter. He's not going to throw 200 innings. I mean, I'll see it when I believe it. So, I mean, they definitely needed the number one. They got it. Obviously, it's an overpay, but like you said, if he opts out after 3, then it becomes a much better contract, and obviously he'll be pitching well. But even still, this was a move you needed to make. You needed pitching in there, whether you're going to eat it at the back end. Hopefully you can get some younger guys developing by then, like Rodriguez, maybe pitching at a Price level or something along those lines. So hopefully, you can bury him maybe towards like the middle, or a 2 or a 3 at that point, even if he's still not a 1, if he does not opt out.
Well, you're paying $31,000 or 31 mil ish to a guy who you're hoping is going to bring you to the playoffs. When you get there, I don't know what this guy's going to do. The knock on him has always been great regular season pitcher. He's the Peyton Manning of Major League Baseball. Fantastic regular season pitcher, chokes hard in the playoffs, and in the presser he said, "Nope, my fortune's going to turn around." Hey, I'll be the first to say, if we're going to pay you $30 million, $31 million, I hope your fortune does turn around here. And Jim, I'm right there with you. Contract sucks. 7 years at that price is ridiculous. But twofold. One, it's not my friggin' money. I don't care. And ticket prices are going to continue to skyrocket whether or not you're paying him or paying somebody else. What I do like about the move, and I'm going to say this again, we did not go out there and try to get a sale or what's that kid from Oakland? I can't think of his name right off the top of my head. Sonny Gray?
Yep.
We didn't trade up to get him. We didn't lose Bogarts or Betts or Mankato or any of our prospects that I thought, you know what, we could really use these guys. Now we get to see Rodriguez develop, Owens develop, Betts develop, Xander develop. We get a core nucleus that, again, is much younger and will keep us going for the next 10, maybe 12 years. And I think that supersedes the fact that we paid Price 7 years on this thing. Now, that's just me. What are your thoughts, Jim?
I agree with you. I think the Red Sox draft smart. They seem to, at least. There is a good core of young players. We saw that throughout much of last year, and there are some guys behind them who are, if not Major League ready, they're on the cusp of being Major League ready, who can come up and, go back to the Patriots, next man up type of thing, where somebody goes down, there is somebody who they can bring up from Double or Triple A. And I think that Price, by being able to be the number one guy, does take a little bit of pressure off some of the other guys, like a Kelly, like a Porcello, and maybe even a Buchholz, whether he gives us 150 innings or who knows how many. I know, I think it was Farrell or Dombrowski a couple of weeks ago listed the pitchers who they were expecting to get to 200 innings, and they mentioned Buchholz, and we all know that's not going to happen. But obviously they have to say something like that. But if Price can take the pressure of being that guy who is the leader and can just be the focal point of the staff to allow some of these younger pitchers to develop, or allow a guy like Kelly and Porcello to just kind of settle in and not have to take the mantle of trying to be something that they're not, trying to be a number one starter when they're clearly not, then I think the deal's worth it.
Still think they got 5 number ones?
Oh, heavens no. No.
Ian?
I think that they actually should have traded some of those prospects and get a guy, because I think that's why you build a good farm system.
What?
All right, so when you're the Red Sox and you have all these guys coming up, right? When they trade the shortstop Guerra and Margot to get Kimbrel, there's no spots for him here. You can't. Obviously, you want to build up and identify your key guys and keep those guys. So your Moncadas, your Betts, your Bogarts, but you want to identify those guys like a Margot or like a Guerra who you think are expendable and who can help you get that next piece, like a Kimbrel or like when they traded for Adrian Gonzalez a few years ago.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I completely agree with Ian.
I'm okay with that. I want to know one thing. What are we going to do with Dustin Pedroia? Yes, I'm throwing red meat out there for Jim because I know how Jim feels about this. I'm on Jim's bandwagon, and I think I was before, but I didn't really come out and fully support him. I think you got to look at trading Pedroia. I think you need to open that spot up. I think you need to look at possibly filling it with somebody else from our farm system. And I'm not saying that because I love Pedroia. I think everybody in here loves his attitude, so forth, so on, blah, blah, blah. I don't really care at this point. I think we've got a movement of the youth, and I think it's maybe time to start looking, if not trading him, at least giving somebody else that time at second base. Thoughts?
Well, if you're not going to trade him, then why would you sit him? Is he going to play 160 games? He's going to play 150 games. Will he play 140 games? The guy's always hurt. We joke about Jacoby D. Ellsbury. Take a look at how many games Pedroia has missed over the past few seasons. He's not exactly durable, and I get it. He plays hard, and I love the attitude, and I love the fact that his uniform is filthy from the first play to the end because he plays the game hard. But I said this months ago, it's time. It's time. We need to move on.
Ian, you look like a
guys in this. I would have put Betts there. I would have put Jackie Bradley out there in center field. I would have put Betts at second base, where he played the majority of his minor league career, and I would have just said, Dustin, thanks for the memories, and let's see what we can get for you. I'm not running the team, though, so.
I think a lot of Red Sox Nation is glad about that. I don't know why.
You got that right.
Oh, Ian's a Dustin Pedroia guy. I kind of knew it right off the bat.
100%.
Here I was sticking up for you before, Vachera. Now you're going to jump on my.
Oh, it's a great game, isn't it?
Ian, are we getting rid of Pedroia? Is it time? I mean, Jim makes a lot of good points, and you can't sit there and say, he's been Mr. Durable. He probably was in the beginning, but at some point he's not an Ortiz. He's not one of those kinds of guys. So it's not like we were ever going to trade Ortiz. However, I think it's time to start thinking about where we can make some upgrades. And second base might be he's an unbelievable defensive second baseman. Nobody's going to take that away from him. But you got to play second base to be an unbelievable second baseman. Yep. And this past couple of years have not been that. You want to keep him, though. I see it in your eyes.
What do you realistically think you're gonna get for a second baseman who's always breaking down? He's got to show that he can stay on the field before you can trade him. And even then, why would you want to trade him at the peak of his value at that point in which he's staying on the field?
But you just said it's not the peak of his value.
If he proves that he can stay healthy, which I'm not sure he can, then why would you trade him when you're getting what you actually want from him? Like, who do you think can step in and replace him at that point?
Betts.
What are you going with the outfield, then?
Are you kidding me right now?
No. So what would you do with the outfield if they traded Pedroia and moved Betts to second?
Well, we just signed Chris Young. If we're just talking right off the top of my head, Chris Young, yeah. Jackie Bradley at center, and then you have Rusney.
So you'd feel comfortable starting Young every day?
Alex Gordon's available.
There you go.
So that's fair enough, but I wouldn't feel comfortable starting Young, though. Excuse me.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, I think you can get a serviceable left fielder that can produce around what Jackie Bradley Jr. is going to produce there, and you're hoping for a turnaround for Jackie Bradley in 2016. If he could show anything like he did at the last portion of the 2015 season, I think you're in for something like 270 and 12 to 15 home runs and 75 RBIs. I'll take that for my center fielder that plays elite defense. I mean, I think we all would agree that would be a decent trade-off, would it not?
No, fair enough. But I just don't see what you actually think you could get for Pedroia to worth justify trading him.
Well, he's definitely not a Hanley Ramirez. Like, I'll take literally for Hanley, I will take a crappy contract to get rid of Hanley. Like, that's what I would do. But with Pedroia, I think there is value in there in the fact that he does play spectacular defense. And I think you don't trade him right away. I think you show first 2 months that he's back, because last year he showed that he had pop in the bat still. I just don't think it's worth continuing to see if he's going to make it or not. Jim, help me out here.
Well, Scott, I'm just looking at something that Ryan McLeod, one of our writers, tweeted. Moncada is 4 years away. The kid can play second then. I don't want to wait 4 years.
Nope.
4 years more of Petey. The contract, Pedroia's got a team-friendly contract. If you're going to do it, now's the time. Do it now. Don't wait 4 years.
That's a great point, Jim. Contract, completely impressive. That's an incentive for any team, especially he's not an average player. He's an above-average player, but he's not where he was. He's not that top 3, top 4 second baseman anymore. So I think you get a team-friendly deal. You get a guy that still has some left in the tank that can play stellar defense, and maybe can give you 100 games, 110 games.
What did we get out of him last year? 92, 93 games?
Yeah. And maybe he's going to switch how he plays around. It's hard to do, but maybe he can tone it down a little bit, extend his career. Because at this point, he's going to run himself out in the next 2-3 years. I mean, he won't be playing with how hard he plays, and I'm surprised he hasn't like thrown his back out with the way he swings. I really am. All right, so here's the last part. We're going to do a Q&A. If you've been watching, Jim's going to throw out a request on Twitter. Hopefully, if we can get your questions, you can hit them up at me. My Twitter account is my Twitter handle is right there, or you can do at Red Sox Life, all one word, on Twitter as well. We want to hear from you. So as we kind of segue into that, I do have a question that I do want to ask, and it's in regards of Jackie Bradley Jr. Are we concerned that the JBJ we saw at the later end, and he did struggle at the very end of the season, are we concerned that moving forward we may have just saw a quick flash in the pan when it came to JBJ offensively? And if so, should we look to trade him in the beginning part of the year, Ian?
I'm a little bit concerned. I don't know if he's definitely not going to do what he did over that torrid stretch where he was just lighting the ball up. But I still think he can be a 250 hitter, which is what he ended up finishing around. And I think the Red Sox will be more than glad to take that. Plays the best center field in baseball. So I think as your 9 hitter, that's perfectly fine.
Jim?
You're going to have to ask me the question again. I can't multitask. I was putting out that tweet you were talking about.
I'm sorry. That's my bad. With what JBJ did last year, that short span of time, about a month and a half, where he was an offensive juggernaut, to then tailing off again and kind of coming back down to earth, are you concerned that moving forward he's not going to be able to reproduce that?
I don't think he's the player that – there was that one hot streak where he was just an extra base machine. It was double after double after double. I don't think that's the real JBJ. I also don't think it's the JBJ who struggled so much early in the year. I think you're going to get a 260 to 270 guy, as you said, maybe low double-digit home runs. I think he'll hit a lot of doubles. Obviously, he's got some speed. He'll drive in 60 to 70 maybe. But it's the defense that I think makes up the difference. I haven't seen anybody play center field like him in a long, long time.
So in that same vein, what are they going to do with Betts and JBJ? Are they going to move Betts to right full time?
I thought that was what Farrell and Dombrowski had said, that JBJ was the center fielder.
Ian, is that a good call?
I 100% think so. I think you put your best outfielder in center field, and especially what we saw with Victorino back in 2013, especially at Fenway, you need a good right fielder out there, and Betts has good range, and I think that'll play very well in right field.
Fair enough. Okay. So here's the first.
The only reason I might consider moving JBJ to right field is because of that arm. That is just an unbelievable arm.
That's true. Just an elite defender, period. First question, how have you been, are you impressed with Dombrowski thus far? Ian?
I would have to say so. I mean, whether or not you like the moves, he's come in, he said what he wants to do, and he's done it. He said he wanted to get a starting pitcher in free agency, he did it. He wanted to get a better arm at the end of the bullpen, he did it. So whether you like it or not, he's sticking to his guns and he's doing what he wants to do, and give the credit to him.
Okay, give him a grade.
I'd say B+ so far.
Okay. Jim?
Despite the fact that Ian did not have my back just a few minutes ago, I will second everything he just said.
Thank you, buddy.
Including the grade?
Yes, including the grade, yes.
Fair enough. I give him a B. I think it's easy to make the moves he made when you have the bank account. I mean, if you're willing to throw $30 million extra on top to get David Price, I mean, part of me thinks that a general manager for the Red Sox can be a trained monkey at times, as long as you know how to put enough zeros at the end of a check. That being said, I do think it was impressive with the way he got Kimbrel, the way he got Price. He said he was going to do it. He did it. I think it helps. He's got a lot of relational collateral with Henry. So I'll give him a B. I'll give him a B on this. Next question. How short of a leash will management give Farrell if the team gets off to a bad start? Jim?
How long is Farrell signed for? Do we know?
I think he had a 2-year extension. last year.
So
You have
it's
2-year extension coming off of last place.
so it's 16 and 17 that he signed for.
Yeah.
Uh, July 4th.
July 4th.
Yeah, I think they'll give him to July 4th.
So that's a very fitting Independence Day, independence from. Okay, go ahead,
Yeah,
Ian.
you know, arguably the midpoint of the season.
Fair enough, Ian.
Yeah, I don't think they'd look to do anything too rash within like the first month or two. I think you give it some time, maybe, by middle of, even beginning of August, if you get into that point and you're still not playing well after the trade deadline, after you sell off some guys and then try to go off into a new direction if it does turn out to go that way.
Fair enough. I think he gets to the end of June, maybe. I think it's a weird situation with the manager in waiting right next to you. It's just awkward. I don't even know why they did that. I don't know why they continue to. I think it was pretty obvious, and it sucks that Farrell got cancer. I'm glad he beat it. But when he left, the team turned. I mean, we can all agree it was a different team, and I just think that was a sign. I know they brought him back because it would have been a really crappy move to fire a guy after being diagnosed with cancer and then eventually beating it. I just don't think I don't think he can develop the young talent quite like maybe some others in that clubhouse can. So with that being said, if they start out really bad and the expectations are this high with Price and some of the pieces that they developed from last year, I think he's out before the end of June. My opinion, of course. All right, next question. Who is going to be the breakout star of 2016 or continue to rise? Ian.
Your starting first baseman, Travis Shaw.
The mayor of Ding Dong City?
Yep, that's the guy.
All right.
I think just the way he finished off last year, I mean, he hasn't, had a great track record in the minors, kind of like a Brock Holt, just come up, maybe he's that 4A kind of guy, just not quite there, but even still, just ride it out till it dies.
Fair enough. Jim?
I'm going to go on the left side of the infield. It could be one of two guys. Sandoval, who, if we can go by some of the pictures that we've seen posted by some fans on various internet outlets, looks like he's in amazing shape. And Xander
Is that a
Bogaerts.
relative? Is that a relative thing? When we say amazing shape, is that like relative?
No. I mean, there was a picture 2 weeks ago that I saw, Scott, that I couldn't get over. I didn't even think it was the same guy. It appears he has made a very, very conscious effort to get himself in, quote unquote, the best shape of his career. But the other guy would be Bogaerts. I think we're going to see a season from Xander Bogaerts, the likes of which we haven't seen in Fenway in some time.
Are we talking power too?
Yeah, I think he puts it all together this year.
First of all, I just want to address your Sandoval relative in great shape. Let me tell you this, my friend. When you're trolling on Instagram and you're trying to hit up the hotties, and maybe they send you a little DM feedback like, hey, maybe if you were about 30 pounds lighter and had a little bit of a deltoid, that's incentive, my friends. When you're taking a crap again and you're going to be liking Instagram people, they're going to notice you.
Let me look at my Instagram here. What do I have? Anybody slide into my DMs?
Oh, jeez. I think the breakout star this year, I think Xander will have a good year. I think Betts is I mean, you can't go wrong with anybody we've talked about, but I think Betts is going to show not only the power, I think he could be as close to a 5-tool guy as Xander can be. I think you're going to see more power. I think you're going to see the speed continue. The defense is going to be there. It's impressive he made the transition. And I think you're going to see the hitting. I think it's all going to come together, and I look forward to seeing Betts, Betts and Xander take the next step. But I think Betts is going to outshine Xander a little bit this year because I think he plays a little more sexier. He's the steals, the heroic catches. You put it all together, it's going to be a real deal. So I'm interested to see. But anyways, that's our time. We went a little bit over. Hey, it was great to be back. We're going to have a round robin of these things. So you'll see Jim, you'll see Ian again, you'll see other people. Let me put it to you this way. I'm always here because I'm always right, and we all know this. Not the problem. The point is that we'll continually do these. We're looking forward to spring training. I think it was 91 days till till we hit and until the season starts. So I'm pumped about that. If you have any questions, if you have statements, if you want to just tell us how we feel, hit Ian up. It's Ian _ Becerra.
Yep.
Oh, nailed it!
You're always
Becerra.
right.
I am always right. I think I always get nervous when I'm saying your name. So you can see it right there on the screen. Of course, Old Faithful, Monahan 21, Jim, loves his Drew brothers, loves baseball, and loves the fact that he can rub it in my face that Steve and Drew helped win us the 2013 World Series. We're not going to go there. Then, of course, you can hit me up, Scott Levesque, all one word. But more importantly, if you haven't followed Red Sox Life, do it on Twitter, all one word. You got great writers putting out great content every day. Check it out. And we're going to try to do these at least once a week. Going to be 30 minutes. Hopefully, they won't be 50. But anyways, thanks for watching. Appreciate you. Hit us up. Let us know if you have any questions or if you think we're just dumb. That's fine. All right. Take care.